Hello and welcome to the Marion Cultural and Civic Center alongside Aaron Price. I'm Riley Swinford. The Swinford Media Group is excited to be here tonight for the special hearing of the Marion City Council, and we're told that this meeting will potentially have big ramifications for the city of Marion, Aaron.
Yeah, that's right, Riley. Lots of important people here in attendance tonight. A pretty good crowd from local business owners to city developers to city personnel. A really good crowd here tonight at the Marion Civic Center to see just what some of the announcements that we made tonight here at the Civic Center. Looks like our light just went off. It might be running a little low on battery, but that's okay. We do have, just for a really, really brief overview of this as they are just about to start, this first started in 2010. The Illinois General Assembly, with then Governor Pat Quinn, approved and signed the Innovation, Development, and Economy Act, paving the way for the city of Marion to implement the STAR bonds to fund future destination development projects within Marion. Now, that eventually fizzled out, but now, just recently here in 2020, the city of Marion is now required to appoint a new master developer, which is Rodney Cavanis, as defined in the Act, to be the lead developer for these projects. So we will hear from Rodney Cavanis tonight, along with Mayor Absher, with a brief overview on more of what this STAR bond district is and what it will mean for the future of Marion and really Southern Illinois as a whole.
We've had coverage the last several weeks in the Marion Star newspaper about the history. We've told you how Mayor Mike Absher and Rodney Cavanis discovered that the Star Bond District was sitting there when they began talking about ways to revitalize the Illinois Star Center Mall. Mm-hmm. They looked into how they could potentially use the Star Bond legislation to benefit them. Mm-hmm. And for the last 3 years, they're in the works. They've been talking with the state, trying to find a way to revitalize that mall, and how this special sales tax and alternative revenue Star Bond could help them fulfill those goals and dreams of that dilapidated, abandoned mall property that we're all aware of, and along with more things in that area, that whole side of town. Cody Moak told us when the city came to meet with the Marion Star to tell us about this development, he said it could be transformational for the city and what it could mean for not only Marion, Williamson County, and Southern Illinois as a whole.
Right.
And there is a nice crowd, like Aaron said, but if you are unable to be here in person tonight to see the slides, to hear from the mayor, to hear the comments from the master developer, Rodney Cavanis, like Aaron said, we'll be here live throughout the duration. This video will be archived here on our page, and we'll also have coverage in this week's newspaper as well.
For sure, and looks like Mayor Absher is about to take the podium here, but like I said, Riley, it kind of fits that we're the Marion Star. There's so much star stuff around here and I just wanted to mention, two big things that really are the takeaways for the public from this that we kind of want to mention, and the city wants to mention and get across to people, is this is more than just the mall. It's all of the west side of Marion, a very, very, very large chunk of the undeveloped areas of the west side of Marion, and now it looks like they're about to begin the meeting.
And it will be funded strictly by the bonds without raising taxes.
Commissioner Webb. Here. Commissioner Stephan. Here. Mayor Absher.
Here. If you would all stand with me and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is to my right, to your left. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time I'm going to allow the city council members and the clerk to exit the stage and take some seats over here in this section so that they can watch the slide presentations and hear the presentations along with the rest of the meetings. Well, good evening. This room is really lopsided, and I'm trying to figure out why. So if you guys start to feel you're listening to something, I'm going to move over here. Do appreciate everyone being here tonight. Tonight is a big night for the City Council, and the conclusion of a lot of work and the start of a whole lot more work. The next item on our agenda is the public hearing itself. We have a statutory requirement to hold a public hearing to inform you, the public, of the Star Bond Project Plan Number 1 for us tonight. And that is the ultimate purpose of the entire meeting. The council and I have worked with the master developer over the last 3 years to make tonight a a possibility. Now, there were many times over this stretch where I thought we might not get to this point, but I'm both thankful and very excited that we are finally here. When I first ran for office, I presented a concept of what I thought the failed mall could be. Not that I promised that that could be a reality, or that I could make it a reality, but that I would set out in order to try to find and incite developers to help find a solution and a new purpose for the mall. That process led to a discussion with Rodney Cabanis and his development team at Millennium Destination Development. In 2020, I was working very hard to help get the mall out of bankruptcy, and a conversation with Rodney about my idea led to his own vision about where and how he wanted to see Marion grow. While we were both looking at an aerial map on Google, the words Marion Starbond District overlaid that map near what is now Love's Truck Stop. That aha moment set in motion conversations with the Illinois Department of Revenue, who is the main authority over the Starbond legislation that was adopted by the General Assembly in 2010. After us both navigating that legislation and countless calls with retailers and other development teams, I'm happy to report tonight is the final step before we can see Millennium's vision become a reality. Now, before we get started with Rodney's presentation and the rest of the agenda, I wanted to introduce a few important people that are here tonight. First of all, the Director of the Illinois Department of Revenue, David Harris, is here with us tonight. Director Harris, welcome, and thank you. And really your entire team for all of your patience and diligence as we have delicately navigated this legislation together. It has been a pleasure working with you to this point, and this process will inevitably tie our administrations together for a little while longer. I know one member of the General Assembly at the time that's here tonight and voted for and championed this legislation, and that is former State Representative John Bradley. I don't know John Bradley. John, welcome to you. Thank you for believing in our community and our region then and now. I also want to very much thank Governor Pritzker, Deputy Governor Andy Menard, our state senator, Dale Fowler, and our local representatives, Paul Jacobs, Patrick Windhorst, and Dave Severn. I think Paul Jacobs is here tonight. Paul, thank you for being here. For all working hard to help us get again to this point tonight. Locally, I also want to thank somebody that's been critical to this process that I'm sure without his knowledge base, we would have never gotten past zero. And that's Glenn Clary, who's our Economic Development Director. Glenn, I've made a joke, but truly a factual point that Glenn is our resident historian of everything that's ever happened in Marion. And he certainly was on the forefront when this legislation was passed and the opportunities that we had at that time. And Glenn, thank you for everything that you've done in your role and to see that this is a reality. There are really many, many others that are responsible for making this tonight possible. But in the interest of time, I simply cannot thank everyone. So please, to all of you that had a hand in this, please know that the council and I sincerely thank you for this opportunity. This plan will be transformational for Marion and our region, and I'm thankful for Rodney and his team's dedication to seeing this through. Some of you already know this, but Rodney and his team have businesses in other states, and many of those states, I can tell you, have tried hard to get him to bring the plans that he's going to show you tonight to their states. I truly believe this development, the Starbond concept really, only works when you have a local developer who calls this community home and wants to live and stay here. We are truly beyond blessed to have that with Rodney and his team. Rodney has worked countless hours over the last 3+ years to make this a reality. So many hours, in fact, that I have to tell you something. that any person of lesser talent and of lesser character and of lesser devotion to the success of our entire region would have very understandably given up. Because this has been a very hard and very long process. So Rodney, before we get too far into your presentation and the rest of the evening, I didn't want to miss the opportunity to thank you on behalf of the grateful citizens. Now, many of you have seen parts of this presentation over these last 3 years in various venues that Rodney may have given a presentation on, or maybe even in the news. Some of you may have even previewed some of this. The city presentation the council had given. And looking back at how long it would take, that might have been pretty premature for me to do, given how impatient of a mayor. But what was not known is how, or even if, we find a sustainable way to pay for any of it. But we are finally here at that critical moment, now that we have the state's approval to use the Star Bonds mechanism to do just exactly that. So after Rodney's presentation, I will do my best to explain that mechanism to you. But to give you an idea of the timeline that's been involved here, in 2008 is when this concept was originally in Springfield. Since that time, and most recently between 2010 and 2013, there was a lot of news about what could happen. But due to several factors, unfortunately, those plans never materialized. Now fast forward with me back to that story I told you about Rodney and me looking at that map back in the 2019-20 timeframe. Since that time, Rodney and his team have developed this project and the plan that you're about to see. The state accepted that project plan, and the state of Illinois then ordered a very important feasibility study to be completed of that plan. The independent consultants that completed that feasibility study determined that this plan was unequivocally feasible. And then in August, we received official approval from the Illinois Department of Revenue, which brings us to this night. Tonight represents the final legislative requirement. That requirement is to present you, the public, with the project plan, answer your questions, hear your comments, and then the council will consider the approval of the project plan. From there, we will notify the Department of Revenue so they can begin collections of the incremental sales tax collected within the district, and then the process of issuing bonds to build all this out and begin. At the conclusion of Rodney's presentation and mine, we will open the floor for comments or questions from you, the audience. We have several experts and attorneys that are here with us tonight with varying interactions with Star Bonds, and I may call on them to help answer the questions, but I'm going to do my very best to answer all the questions that you have myself tonight. For the press that is here, we will have press availability and resources in the lobby following the adjournment of the meeting, so we would ask the press to hold your questions until the end, and we'll have some time for you in the lobby. At the conclusion of that public comment period, we will close the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting, and the council will then consider the approval of an official ordinance adopting the Marion Star Bond Project Plan number 1. So as we get started, and I introduce Rodney, I do want to answer a question, maybe the most frequently asked question that I've heard through this 3-year process. Why Rodney? Now, and in this regard, I'm speaking directly to you, Mike Absher, not necessarily as the mayor. But as we've navigated this process, I've come to believe that this is a fact. Star Bond developments only work when the developer is local. Because of his local love for our region, Rodney has worked more than anyone else to make tonight a reality. Simply put, without him and his tenacious determination, tonight never happens, and the 3 years of work to get us here are all lost for the benefit of our future generations. He has invested more time and more resources than anyone else, and that's why this council made the easiest decision of all in this process to appoint him as the master developer. You see, that Rodney and all of his team understand that for our local economy to grow, we must bring in new dollars from outside of a 70-mile radius, which we'll talk about in a little bit. He will detail that for you much later, but he's been successful in selling his products to people that live in 34 states, not just Illinois. Now, you all know that I am maybe one of the largest advocates for shopping local. The lesson that I've learned, as important that is we all have to understand the fact of that, a mathematical fact. If we're only trading with each other and circulating that same dollar between one merchant and another, hoping that it eventually comes back to us, we really don't grow. It's the same dollar that circulates throughout the economy. Now, that is not to sustain our economy, but it is this opportunity, and he is the person that consistently does what it takes to grow. Because the idea is to get outside dollars into our economy. Applying the same business acumen that he has used to grow Black Diamond into the national brand, he now has the opportunity to make our region a destination for retail, a destination for entertainment, and a destination for tourism. You see, my friends, a rising tide lifts all boats. And in that analogy, he and this legislation are the tide. And our region gets the opportunity to be every other boat in that water. Whether it's Heron, or Harrisburg, or Carbondale, or Mount Vernon, or Murfreesboro, or SIU as an institution, every community and every niche of our local economic ecosystem will get an opportunity to benefit from what he is proposing to do here tonight. As I said, I think this only works well, or maybe only at all, with a local developer. And ultimately, that's why I believe this legislation is so masterfully crafted. It incentivizes a developer that is willing to put in the work that he will share with you tonight. Developers that aren't interested and they're not invested in our region don't put in the blood, the sweat, and the tears or the personal resources that Rodney and his team have already dedicated to this project. Now, don't get me wrong. Rodney and I have had a few disagreements over the last 3 years. But at the end of the day, I know better than anyone that he shares a common vision that I've evangelized during my entire time in office. That in some sense, Southern Illinois should aspire to be the next Gatlinburg, as I believe we're the gateway to the Shawnee National Forest, just as Gatlinburg is the gateway to the Smokies. He knows what's at stake. And I truly believe that he's the only person that can make this happen. With that in mind, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you the Master Developer with Millennium Destination Development, Rodney Campus.
If you're one of those people out there that says, why Rodney, don't feel bad. I say why Rodney all the time. My family says why Rodney. My partner, Shannon, says why Rodney. It's because we do share a vision. Mayor Etcher is correct. This has been a long journey. I've always been confident that we would get to this point. Sometimes more confident than others, but I've always believed that Southern Illinois can and will be a destination. I believe the mayor and I share that vision. I believe my team shares that vision, and I believe the council members in this city share the vision. We all want growth and prosperity. So, I've lived here my entire life. I'm here tonight to talk to you about the Star Bond project plan and how we came up with this particular plan. Before I start, I need to recognize the efforts that happened before I even began this journey. It's already been mentioned, but it's